Okay, today I'd like to work on the 5th verse of 2 Kings chapter 5, the phase 1. Um, as I said before, I'm showing how to do the phase 2 in separate videos, and I think it's really useful to understand the phase 2, but it is possible that you could help us by just doing the phase 1. So let's start out by praying. Lord, we depend on you. We know that we need you for your inspiration and help. So, Lord, help us to make good decisions about this translation. Amen. Okay, so let's look at the English translations. I've mentioned this before. If I were working in the New Testament, I have some knowledge of Greek, and so it would be useful for me to look at that. But for Hebrew, I don't usually look at it because I'm not very knowledgeable about Hebrew. Okay, so this shows the NIV on the left and the International Children's Bible on the right. So just to review, verse 4 had the Naaman going to his king and telling the king what the girl from Israel had said. And in the NIV says, verse 5, "By all means go," the king of Aram replied. "I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So Naaman left, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. So this verse presents some new complications that we haven't yet dealt with, specifically like quantities of things. And also note that it starts out with a quote. The king of Aram replied. We do it the opposite order. We say the king of Aram said. I don't think we have replied. And that's what it has in the International Children's Bible. And let's look in the Easy English. I'll pull that up. The king of Aram replied, "Go to Israel. Go there. I will send a letter to the king of Israel." Okay, so let's look at the ontology. I'm pretty sure well, maybe we do have replied. Let's take a look. So I click on the upper left menu item, ontology, and source events and target verbs. Now I go to this pull down menu on the right, and I'm going to click R. No, we don't have reply. I was correct. Okay, I do remember that we do have answer. So if I do pull down A, we could say he answered him, but I think this isn't, we don't know that Naaman really asked a direct question, so I would kind of shy away from using answer. Reply in English kind of means a response, not necessarily answering a question. So let's say he said. So the king of Aram said. The king of Aram said. Okay, so let's do that. We'll make a small beginning for this verse. The king of Aram said, okay, you can see my voice recognition is not doing fantastic. Okay, it doesn't know that word, Aram. I noticed, and I showed it to Todd last night, that if you go to the program and you click on source notes, there are buttons below the upper menus, audiences, source notes. It gives the wrong the wrong convention for multiple sentence quotes. It says, John said, open quote, left bracket, Mary read. I think Todd may change it so that that works, but up until this time, that hasn't worked. You've needed to do it like this, and I talked about this in my tutorial on conversation. So you have to have the left bracket first, open quote, until Todd fixes that. Okay, so we got the start of this first. Now let's say, what does he say? By all means go, the king of Aram replied. International Children's Bible says, go now. English, Easy English says, go to Israel, go there. By all means. So we could do go now. I'm curious to see what I'm going to go to this site Bible Hub, which gives you a lot of translations. And let's put in 2 Kings 5:5. Okay, so New International, by all means go. New Living, go and visit the prophet. English Standard, go now. Go now. Okay, I guess a lot of the translations have go now, so let's use that. Cap U, no space, left paren, Naaman, right paren, imperative paren, go now, period. Oops, we've got to put a, even when you have the multiple sentences and quotes, you have to close this first bracket. So I was mentioning to Todd, I'd really prefer to have the opening quote outside of the left bracket so that the brackets could close. It's kind of strange having this quote inside the bracket that doesn't close. So that might get fixed later. Anyway, this is the way we should write it as of now. The king of Aram said, you go now. And I made it imperative by putting this in parentheses IMP. The analyzer will pick that up. Okay, so let's go back to the English translations. Okay, we're looking at Bible Gateway there. Put Easy English up. Go, I will send a letter to the king of Israel. Then he says, I will send a letter to the king of Israel. Easy English, I will send a letter to the king of Israel. I'm guessing that's how we're going to do it. Translation for translators. Okay, go and see the prophet. I will write a letter for you to take to the king of Israel. So that's what I was wondering about. So the more literal translation is I will send a letter, but you know, seeing that he takes the letter with him, you can see why the translation for translators preferred to write it this other way. I will write a letter for you to take to the king of Israel. Well, this is a hard one. I think I'll go with the more literal, but that's not totally clear. I will send a letter to the king of Israel. There's more than one way to skin a cat, you see. We could do it the other way. And I, no space left paren, king, right paren, will send a letter to the king of Israel. Period, close quote. Okay, so we've got that first part, but this verse was a little bit longer than that, so let's see what else we have to do. So Naaman left. So Naaman left. So Naaman went to Israel. Okay. We're going to break this up. So NIV said Naaman left, taking with him 10 talents of silver. So you can see it uses this verb form, taking, to kind of tack on an extra sentence there. So we're going to break it up into sentence. So we could say, so Naaman left. I think I like the way Easy English said. I think it's a little bit clearer. Went to Israel. So Naaman went to Israel. Period. Okay, we've got that part. And now we want to say what he took with him. Okay, now we're probably not going to say with him, although you would say that in English, because I believe the forms of take imply that you take something. He took 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 sets of clothing. Okay, so there are several complications here. Okay, I'm going back to the TBTA. I already have selected events from the Ontology and Lexicon. I'm going to pull down and go to the T's, take. So I've got take. Okay, the first sense is to carry, transport, or move something from one place or another. John took the book to the library. And that seems to be the sense that we want. There are some other examples we see here. Nebuchadnezzar took things from the temple. Nebuchadnezzar took the things to Babylon. Samson took the honey from the bees with his hands. And if you just look at the letters in the fourth column theta grids, or look at the arguments now in this white pop-up menu, it shows you that there's a obligatory agent and an obligatory patient, and the other arguments are optional. So in other words, all we need is Naaman took those things. So that is good. The next one is to take someone to someplace. That's to take a person, so we don't want that. The next one is to take an animal to someplace. Well, he's not taking any animals that we know of. And the fourth one is to take something from someone and to keep it as your own, like to steal things. A little bit less, with a less harsh word than steal. So it looks like sense A will work for us. We don't need to say with, we can just say he took those things. So let's see what things he took. 10 talents of silver. Now, Naaman left and took about 750 pounds of silver. Okay, so we have made a decision in TBTA to use metric. And we're not going to use shekels and talents. So let's see, I want to convert, I'm going to search in Google 700 pounds to kg, kilograms. 317. Now, we could say 317 or 318. But do we know that these are exact amounts? They might be, since these are amounts that the king gave to him. They might be exact amounts. How about, but you know, I don't want to say 317. I think I'm going to say 300, and that's close enough. And some of these things I'm doing right now, you know, they might get changed later. And I want to assure you that, you know, you don't have to get everything perfect. And we may adjust things later. Right now, just to get anything into our program for these parts where we don't have the semantic representations would be helpful. So, but I'm going to do the best I know how. And I'm going to say, Naaman took silver. Now what you're going to see here is that I'm doing something a little bit tricky I don't think we've talked about. So this is the way we do it. And now I need to remind myself, what is a kilogram? What's it called in the... So I already have the ontology here. I can see the source terms in the cream or yellow color. I'm going to select the nouns, objects that is. Now I'm going to go to the K's. Okay, kilogram. Okay, so that's how we write it. We don't write it kilos, we write it kilograms. And I think I'll just use it. I don't know if I write it with the plural or the singular. We'll find out when we do the phase 2. Kilograms. Okay, so see, what I did here is when I have a quantity like this, I say the thing that I'm talking about, the silver, and then I put dash quantity 300 kilograms. Okay, let's see what the next thing is. The next thing is, okay, we're going to forget the NIV and go to the International Children's Bible. He took, there it said about 750 pounds. Oh my gosh, I think I did, oh, I made a mistake. Okay, so this should have been 750. About 340. We could put about. Now, especially now that we've gotten into, it's not so close to 300 anymore. Okay, let's do that. I'm going to put an adjective phrase here. I'm going to put about 350 kilograms. Okay, so you can see how sometimes you change your mind. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, so now what's the next thing? So the next thing is 150 pounds of gold. So let's see, what is 150 pounds? That's about 68 kilograms. So I'm going to say, and gold about 70 kilograms. And so now we have the last thing. And 10 sets of clothing. Okay, so that's interesting. I'm not sure we're going to have that sense of sets. In the International Children's Bible, it says 10 changes of clothes. I'm not sure we're going to have that sense of changes. 10 suits of clothes. Let's see what Translation for Translators says. "10 sets of clothing." In the Bible Translator's Handbook, it says 10 festal garments. But many, that's RSV, but many consider this a mistranslation. Could mean a change or a set, an assortment, an outfit. 10 sets of garments, 10 changes of clothing, 10 new outfits. Okay, so that's what they suggest. It's probably the better alternative. Okay, so we have some ideas here. Sets, suits, outfits, changes. Okay, so I suspect that I'm not sure we're going to have any of these. So let's look for change. I'm sure we're not going to have that. Nope, change is not a noun. So let's look at the S's. Set, a set of things. Huh. Well, it looks like we might be able to use that. And let's check the other one, suits. I don't think it would have the right sense anyway, but nope, no suit. Okay, looks like maybe we can use 10 sets. So I'm not sure about this, but I'm going to do it the same way as we already did. Clothing. Okay, and you know, I think I made a mistake. I think I'm not supposed to have these left brackets. We'll find out when we do the phase 2. I'm not sure about that. Let's try it out. Okay, so let's go to the analyzer, utilities. Okay, so reference. So I mentioned like at very high Bible stories, you can find some blank space. Another word that, okay, so this one, I was already testing something else. The man had silver, quantity 10 kilograms, period. Whoa. I'm going to convince you that you shouldn't try voice recognition. Okay, so, oh shucks, I gotta switch back. We switched to English. Okay, so I'm gonna choose Analyzer. So I went to Utilities, it's the third menu item up at the top, and then select or change a language. And then from this pull-down menu here, select a target language. The first pull-down menu, I clicked on that, and I clicked Analyzer. And so now it's loading up the Analyzer. So to use the analyzer can do an automatic conversion from phase 1 to phase 2. And you have to be in the analyzer language to use it. Okay, so now I click on Utilities again, the third menu item up at the top, Proposition Analysis. Now I'm going to have to go to that verse again. Reference, I'm going to go to Bible Stories. Or I could just work here. Suppose I go to the next verse. This is blank. Okay. The man had silver, quantity, numeral 10 kilograms. Okay. See what happens with that. Okay, so it converted it to the man had silver, quantity 10 kilograms. Okay, so that's the way we should write it. So suppose we put it in the brackets. You know, you can always do little experiments like this just to see what happens. Yeah, see, it was confused. It thinks that if you have the brackets, it should be a subordinate clause. So it put that quantity in a subordinate clause, which is not right. It should have come out the other way. Just so we don't get confused later, I'll delete this. So when we come back to it, it'll be blank. Okay, so it shouldn't be with the brackets. It should be without the brackets. Okay, so this is what we have. The king of Aram said, start with a left bracket, open quote, you, Naaman, imperative, go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel. So Naaman went to Israel, and Naaman took silver, quantity about 350 kilograms, and gold, quantity about 70 kilograms, and clothing, quantity 10 sets. I think we can use commas here. Gold, and clothing. Let's try an experiment with that. So go to the next one. The man had silver, comma, gold, comma, and clothing, period. Oh, it doesn't like clothing. Ooh. Well, I guess this was a useful experiment. Okay, so this should be clothes. Whoops. The man had silver, comma, gold, comma, and clothes, period. Yes, okay, so it did it right. So that using the commas worked fine. Notice that the first noun phrase with silver, if you put the mouse over it, it says first coordinate. So it knows it's the first of some things that you're lumping together. This says coordinate, the second noun phrase, and the third says last coordinate. So that is a valid way to do it, but what we found out from this experiment is it should have been clothes, not clothing. And we would have found that out when we started doing the phase 2. If we go to the ontology and lexicon, ontology, source objects and nouns, we go to the C's, we would see, I just assumed clothing seemed such a common word that it would be in there, but it wasn't. It's clothes, that which people wear. Okay, so it means the same thing, but we had to use the word clothes, not clothing. Okay, so that's our phase 1 for 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 5. Thank you for listening.